Day 3 of this week, and now the progress is slowing down because our welder is sick. So I think it's from the fumes welding with a seam sealer, but he did do some progress before taking a few days off. Let me quickly show you progress that he did in the past 2 days. I mean, you saw most of it, but only a little more was done. So the tunnel is finally in place. It's not fully welded in, it's just spot welded in or tack welded. But you get the idea now how the lines are gonna pass through. So obviously once we weld this all up nicely and stuff, we can clean up the corners so that it looks flawless. But the point behind this is so the lines will pass through that hole. We're gonna make that hole smaller. So few lines, the water lines from the heat exchanger, the supercharger lines, the radiator lines will all pass down through this hole. Obviously right behind us over here there's a firewall. So they will pass through a hole that we will kind of like shrink down. It doesn't need to be that big. And then they go through that tunnel, up, and then out from the firewall right there. And in the spot, we can open this cover so that we can maneuver the lines in properly. Because right here, it's kind of like a straight shot, so the lines won't kink or bind. But once you want to start going up, it's going to be tricky. So that's why we have this removable window over here so that we can get to the inside and pull the lines out and push them through the hole in the firewall, which is right here. Now this opening up here, this is not gonna remain open. There's another piece that goes on top of it and it bolts on with just bolts and rev nuts, which the point of this is for our mil-spec connectors. So I don't want to put the mil-spec connectors in the back over there, even though it's tidier and hides the wiring just like the S18, but removing it is just an absolute nightmare. So that's why putting it right here will make removal and installation of the wiring so much easier. But we also need to consider that the wiring guy is going to have a hard time to put the female side of the connector, which bolts on with like small bolts and nuts. So what we decided to do is that this piece is going to be removable. He'll do the connectors on the outside, put it on here, bolt it up in place, and then there will be just a small bead of silicone on the bottom or some bot resistant strip or something. So we'll have the two connectors over here, actually 3 connectors. So 2 for the engine, and then there's 1 that goes to the body, but that's going to be probably like a small one. We have the 2 32mm ones, which are for the engine. This over here is a tunnel for the lines. I already explained that just now, but what we'll do is we'll clean up the corners, smoothen them nicely, and then maybe add a little bit of like a weather strip protector so that we don't cut on the lines. Okay guys, so we are back here at the shop, but as you can tell today it's me working, and the reason why is because our fabricator has been ill for 2 days and he's getting slightly worse, so he's gonna have to take off like a few days, maybe another 2-3 days. There is a possibility that he might come in tomorrow, but there's nothing really guaranteed at this point. So because of that, in order to speed up some of the process, so I've opted to come in today and do some welding. At this point, all we can do on the car is just fabrication and welding. Since I'm the only other person that knows how to weld, I'm not a professional, but I can weld. So I opted to come in and help out with doing some of the welding. So let me show you quickly here what I'm doing. So mainly what I'm getting done is right here. So these 370s and the 350s, they have a secondary firewall that basically goes, let me zoom it out. Yeah. So they have a firewall that pops up right from here and goes all around and moves away like around, let's say 3 inches or 2 inches away from the actual firewall. So obviously we cut that all off in order to have more room. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just stitch welding wherever we had the cuts done. And also I'm closing just a few more holes. You can't see that, but there's a few holes down by the fenders. Basically, actually, the plan was today that I would put the seat in and then measure for the shifter, do the mounts for the shifter and the handbrake. But since Wissam is not here and I prefer that he is here to help me out, so I'll do that tomorrow. So I removed all of that finally, so now no more any of that plate. I did a little bit stitch welding where that plate used to be and where the two plates connect. So there used to be a plate here coming out. When you cut it off, there's a gap. So I welded that seam all the way down together on both sides and stitched welded all the way down. Closed a couple of more holes since I was anyways working on it over there. There were a couple of holes from the spot welds on the tunnel, so I closed them off. I hate closing off these small holes. They're so annoying. You have to slowly on a very low voltage tack it and then grind it down, tack it again. I mean, you guys know. Our fire suppression kit is here. Our transmission is here, but our fire suppression kit is here, which means tomorrow I can test. Actually, I was supposed to test this today, but anyways, we'll test it tomorrow because I want to leave. Checked it right now because the box was right in front of me. Anyways, good news. Everything will fit. The only issue I have is the drain valve on the ice tank is basically hitting right here. So what I will do is I will relocate this from being here to like somewhere over here. So I'll just move this from here to here, which is very simple. Send it to the machine shop. It's like a 2-hour job. They'll shift this from here to here, which will allow me to get the ice tank all the way out to the side and this in center over here. And then my fuel tank is here. I think this is a good setup because it will spread the weight evenly all over here in this point. I've come to learn something with the cars that I've built is that I've always focused when we're building the car, because even if I put it on scales, like we have the scales right there, even if I put it on the scales right now, it will not simulate what's gonna actually 100% happen, because once we have the engine in place, transmission in place, all the suspension, the shocks and stuff, things are gonna move out of what you aligned. So something that right now some people would be looking at and going like, yeah, but your ice tank is always gonna be full, and that's gonna always be full. Your fuel tank is gonna empty every 2 runs. So you're gonna have more weight on this side. Not the case. I'll tell you why. I've done this on my S13. Can you imagine how much lines you have going inside this, all the way up there and down there? You have 2 lines for the radiator. So that's 2-16s. You have 2-12 for the ice tank. You have what else? You have 2-8 for the fuel. And then you have 1-10 for the aqua sump. So just imagine putting down all these lines on the floor in front of you, and just imagine how heavy they are filled with fluids. So, yep. That's why I think it's gonna be a good balance. So I've been here for a couple of hours this morning. We were just test fitting the seat and the wheel and the handbrake and the shifter, and we have a plan. See all the markings over there. So we're gonna get to mounting everything now. It's time to weld some stuff. Okay guys, we are finally test fitting. So everything is bolted down. It's done. Handbrake is in, solid. Shifter is in, solid. This is not the wheel we're using. We're just borrowing this off the 350, but it's gonna be a similar wheel. But anyways, this is the resting position basically for everything. So I think I'm happy with it. Feels good. Shifter, handbrake. Handbrake is a little bit further than what I usually do, but it's good. That's it. We are done. So this is the final placement basically. Very similar to the S13. Again, I'm really disappointed with these Z1 brackets because I don't understand what seat they're supposed to bolt onto because the holes are so small. So I don't know, we're gonna have to make another one because these holes are all small and they're not gonna mount with my brackets. So I don't see the point of it. I redid that bracket. It was flipped around the opposite way and we welded the nuts in place. So this is basically how the tank was sit. It's pretty level now. And the fire suppression tank will remain there. Ice tank will remain here, but I have to, as I said, move this to this point over here so that we can push this tank all the way up. And we're gonna probably have to do some sort of bracket so we can get this tank to also sit straight. Welder is finally here, so he's back to work, and we finish some final touches before he puts in the firewall. So we've discovered when we were testing the handbrake and the shifter location, all of that, that there is a bracket that holds the backside of the steering column from there, and we didn't know. So anyways, we put that in place. So I had to make that one, and it took a couple of hours because we didn't plan for it, so we didn't have much space to set it up basically. But now it actually came out quite nice and it's pretty solid, so I'm happy with it.
Okay.
Yeah, huh?
You check the
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So this is for the dyno. It's not what we hook the car with, but it's for the dyno so that we can strap it onto the dyno if we ever have to put it on a roller. If we're back at the shop, and today is usually the day that we get most done because there's no traffic. Anyways, usually today in Dubai is not a working day, but the guys here, they work on a Sunday and take off on a Saturday. So, as you can tell, finally, the firewall is in place, and Bob did just an absolutely beautiful job on this firewall. So this is basically two pieces. He welded them in, and then he made these cups, basically, which will allow us to put the seat belt through the normal way. So this is the end result of the firewall. So I came in today and I was doing just a few things here and there. This is the overflow tank for the differential. So I'm gonna put it here. Usually I know people just put like an air filter, like a small breather filter, but they tend to leak out from there when the oil is cold and you directly floor it. So that's why putting this allows it to fill up and then go back in. I do this on both my cars and it works the best. The tunnel inside is complete, but it needs to be just smoothened out quite a lot. Again, this, like, the floor goes up and down, up and down. So Bob did his best with scanning the floor properly in order to get like as perfect as a fitment as we could. But I mean, this is almost like a 95% good fitment, and so the little grinding that they'll do will give us the final perfect fit. Yeah, so this just needs grinding and should be done. Master cylinder also, Bob did this bracket over here. For some reason, there are no adapters to run an aftermarket master cylinder for a 370. I don't know why. You'll find for every other car except for a 370. It's, to be honest, it's because the stock master cylinder is like this weird, where is it? Somewhere here. So that's where the firewall is. The actual master cylinder sits inside the firewall, like 70% of it, or 60%, and then 40% sits outside. So, but Nissan did that because the ABS module fits right here. So in order to have room, they did that kind of design. But there are these small master cylinders that will fit. So I don't know why there isn't any companies out there that make these master cylinders. So if you have a 370 and you need this adapter, let me know and we can make them for you to run these short master cylinders. You're gonna need to run a bigger master cylinder if you're running a heavy clutch. Similar to any LS clutch, you're gonna need to jump up to 0.875 or 0.75 something. So that's why this is a must for us. So anyways, Bob did a great job with the bracket. It is pretty solid inside there. And it even fits with the ABS module. So if you still wanna run the ABS module, they still fit. We're not running it, of course, we're removing it. But we wanted to see if it actually works with the ABS module, and it does. So I don't know why companies like GK or Chase Bay or whatever don't have an adapter for this car. And no, the 350 adapter will not work because the bolt pattern on the master cylinder is different. So the spacing is different. So you can't use the adapters from the S chassis or the 350s or anything like that. You gotta make your own thing, basically. So that's done. One thing, however, you do need a longer fork to reach the clutch pedal, which is not an issue. So they sell them in a clevis. So they sell them in many different sizes. We also welded these hooks over here. I don't know, again, if I spoke about it in the last video or not. These are for the dyno. They are not to bolt the car onto the trailer. These are just for the dyno. So these are really important. I have them on all my cars. It's just because with removing the rear structure over here, you don't have a hook point anymore for the dyno. And you do need something that's gonna hold the car properly in place. So we have these two over here, one here, so you can do an X in the back. And then you have the stock ones, which are underneath the car. This is what I love about a 370 and 50. You see those? You can just put a rope through it, and that is directly holding onto the chassis. See, it's part of the chassis. And then you can put it on the dyno, and you'd know that it's properly strapped in, and you're not gonna kill the tuner. The guys are gonna be back at night to continue welding. The welder is gonna be here nighttime to do some welding, and Bob is gonna be supervising him. So catch you guys later.